My name is Dan from UFC,
I'm Luis with EFC.
and today we're going to talk about executive function skills. What are they? Why is it so important to understand them? And how understanding them and getting the right help is going to make a world of difference. So first off, what we really want to talk about is, when you do Google executive function skills, you get a broader range of definitions. Like there's 6 of them, 7 of them, 8 of them, etc. And it's really just very complicated the way that other professionals and other individuals really define executive function skills. For us, it's very simple. It's purposeful, goal-oriented behavior in an unstructured environment. So purposeful, goal-oriented behavior in an unstructured environment. And why do I emphasize unstructured environment? And typically speaking, when we're in a structured environment, we know exactly what to do, and we're not stressed out about it. We're not overwhelmed. We know how to manage everything. But it is when we are in an unstructured environment, when there's chaos, when we have so many assignments due on Friday or on Monday, and we didn't work on it, and we're super backlogged, and we have a tennis match coming up or a basketball game that we have to go play at, and we have a family dinner in the next hour or so, and we have all these things coming up, that it becomes very chaotic for us to even execute goal-oriented, purposeful behaviors.
And let me jump in there for a second, Dan, because one of the things that I found a lot of is that when students make that transition from high school to college, high school has a degree of structure. You go to a building and you've got to be in this room at this time, this room at this time, this room at this time. There are people looking out for you. There are people who are checking your grades. You've got teachers who are, asking you about your homework. You've got an administration who's saying, hey, you didn't show up to class for 2 days. You've got all that structure going on in high school. You go off to college, and I see a lot of students just sort of fall apart because there's no one telling them where they have to be at a certain time. There's no one following up, and they haven't developed that skill set to do that on their own. So by teaching people to put structure in their lives now to supplement and build on the structures that are already there, they're more able to handle creating their own structures when they don't have anything to work from. That's college, that's work, that's life.
Yeah, and just to kind of talk about that, right? It's the idea that you're just drifting through life, right? You don't really have any specific purpose that's going on, any goals that you're oriented towards, and you're just kind of drifting along. And that could be fine for like a few days, but if it continues for weeks and months, it could really kind of put a lot of distraught into what's really going on in your life and other people as well. So before we kind of dive into other parts of executive function skills, I kind of want to explain the science behind it. So executive function skills primarily take place in our prefrontal cortex, which is like the forehead of our brain. And a good way to think about it is like whenever you're stressed out, you're really trying to think about things, etc. Have you ever wondered why you feel like you're getting a fever or you have a bad headache? It's because your executive function skills are on overdrive, because you're in an unstructured environment. It's super hard for you to concentrate, and your EF skills are just going boom, 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 boom. We gotta get this done, and you get a headache, and your head is like burning up and stuff. And the thing that's so challenging about EF skills when it comes to what actually happens in our brain is that our brain is just a crazy, magnificent organ that we have. It's so interconnected. When we're talking about just making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, we're not only just talking about our prefrontal cortex, we're talking about our parietal lobe when it comes to the memory of storing how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And although that might seem a little bit simplified, when we're introducing a lot of chaos into when we have kids running around, or, if you're in college or your dorm mate is just blasting his music, something as simple as making a PB&J can get pretty darn challenging sometimes. So, I mean, do you have any other examples?
Oh, wow. So the idea that, you have to remember, let's talk about PB&J for a second, because
Sure.
if you look at that, think of all the things that you have to do that you do on autopilot. Okay, I want to make a PB&J, so what I got to do? I've got to get utensils, got to get a plate, got to get bread, peanut butter, jelly, put it all together, and I can do all this while I'm having a conversation on the phone, while I'm telling my kids to get their homework done. All of these things can happen, so it feels, if you really break it down, that's a lot of stuff, but you're doing it like that just because the pathways are there and you know how to do it. Now imagine being asked to do something where you've never developed that pathway, where you've never had to do it before. Then that's what we're talking about, executive function skills, when you have not even necessarily deficits, just things that you've never done before or that you've never had to do on a regular basis. You have to be able to organize them and think step by step. And eventually, hopefully, step by step becomes automatic.
Yeah, and I think, another example of us using our EF skills when things are so chaotic, or a good example of how we can get better at it, is this idea of like when you go for a hike. When you go somewhere unknown and you're going for a hike and maybe you're lost. Being lost means you have to walk around more, you get more tired, etc. But once you do it more and more often, you get more and more healthier and more fit, and allows you to take that hike at a more leisurely pace. So introducing EF skills into unstructured environments does exactly that. It makes things just easier for you. It makes your brain work less. And, our brain works pretty hard. So giving it different strategies to help it work less is always better.
And to talk about hiking, you're working on hiking. Maybe it's just a matter of putting one step in front of the other to get where you're going. But as Dan said, you do it often, you get fit, you literally have time to stop and smell roses.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we really want to emphasize on is individuals that actually struggle with executive functioning disorders. So it's something that's kind of disheartening, because individuals that struggle with EF disorders or have like very challenging EF challenges, and they have attention deficits, etc. Sometimes they really just feel like there's something wrong with them, because they can't seem to stay on track. They can't seem to get in the game, because every turn they take, there's chaos everywhere, and they can't seem to find that structure in this unstructured world that we live in. And a lot of the times, introducing simple things like simple EF skills, like calendaring, time management, organizational skills, prioritization skills, all these different ways to help them get on track, even having little timers everywhere, etc., or post-it notes, etc., will help them remember to turn in assignments so things don't pile up and there's not a bunch of missing work and stuff. Can you share some of your experiences with some of your kids when it comes to like how having an actual challenge with EF skills affects their life?
Well, one thing I found is very much an idea that students have that end goal, this thing that I've got this paper due at 4:00 on Friday, and they know they've got to write a paper. But, okay, I sit down, I'm going to write a paper. What do I do? So breaking things down into smaller portions, breaking things down into ways that say, okay, so writing a paper, what's your first step? Well, once you've chosen your topic, let's do some research. Let's figure out that. And so you decide specifically, I'm going to spend X number of hours over X number of days doing research. Then I need to outline my paper. So I'm going to spend an hour outlining, and keep a note. I'm saying very specifically, number of hours. Be very specific. Make things not only bite-sized, but know when you're going to do them and have a good idea of how long it's going to take, because that's eliminating chaos. It's not writing a paper with a whole bunch of mixed up chaotic steps. It's step 1, step 2, step 3. And the most important thing there is to remember just to keep in tune with your steps and use your tools. Dan mentioned calendars. Use calendars. Love calendars, because you can put down specific things, not just work on paper, but do research, go to the library, write outline. The more detail my kids get, the more I found that they are able to just not only get things done, but get them done more effectively and feel better about them.
Yeah, because one of the things that we want to keep in mind, why is that the case? Why is putting more EF skills into our lives and make our lives easier and less chaotic. It's really just because when we plan everything out and we use our time management skills and our organization skills and even our prioritization skills and these EF skills that we're talking about, what really happens is that we don't have to think about what comes next. There's more instruction, there's more structure, and things kind of just make sense on, okay, I'm doing this now, I'm gonna have to do this later, and this is what comes after that. Everything is kind of planned out. And I think, the next thing that we really want to talk about is why it's so important to get help in this process. I want you to kind of imagine this idea that you're in a storm and everything is blowing, wind is churning, you're getting hit left and right by debris, and there might even be some thunder, some rain, you're getting drenched. How hard is it going to be to get yourself out of that situation if there's nobody yelling, saying, come here, come here? How do you know where to go? How do you know what's right? How do you know what's going to make you go forward instead of take you back? And that's kind of where a coach comes in. A coach has gone through, because a lot of us have gone through this stage of we don't know how to do something. We don't have these EF skills, and we've all had to build them. And having somebody that's kind of gone through the process guide you and teach you what to do makes a world of a difference. And this individual can be anybody. It doesn't have to be an actual professional. It can be your mom, it could be your dad, it could be your teacher. It could be like a mentor that's a year older than you or so. But having somebody guide you in that process really makes a world of a difference.
And think of it this way. One thing that's really important is that these are skills. These are things that you learn, and as you learn them and practice them, they become habits. So ideally, we're not part of this plan forever. Your coach, your guide, however you want to phrase it, we're there to teach the skills, help you make the skills work, and then hopefully you lose them.
Having somebody that is just only for EF skills really helps, because working on something that you really struggle with and you're really just not great at is very emotional. And being able to come into a session and be vulnerable and talk about these things with them and work on different strategies that may or may not work for you, and then being able to step away back into your regular life and implementing it with your parents or your teachers or your friends, etc. Makes a quick recap, right? So what are EF skills? EF skills are skills that help you make purposeful, goal-oriented behaviors in an unstructured environment. And, individuals can have a very hard time developing these by themselves. And it's always very important to get some help with it, at least in the beginning, so that you can get out of the storm, get out of the gutters, and get back on track. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to talking to you guys next time.
Thank you very much.